I think you know how much I mourn the fact that most of us learn to be Jewish in English, and how English makes words much more solid than Hebrew words, which, at least in my opinion, present corridors through which we can travel to encounter depth and holiness. As you know, I think I probably said it a million times. One of my least favorite translations is Yud He Vav He being translated as Lord, because Yud He Vav He is, as we know, a verb, and Lord is, well, you know. But another word, another translation that is just so outrageous is translating Bamidbar as numbers. Bamidbar is in the wilderness. And what is a wilderness? A wilderness is a place beyond the borders. It is an ownerless place, a no man or no person's world, a no man's land, free for all to pass through. It is a place of danger, but also a place of freedom, openness and vulnerability. By calling it numbers, King James, or whoever he asked to translate the Torah, has turned the mystery of this wild place into something to be quantified, an imposition of order and propriety on that which cannot be contained. Numbers gives us a world of military, merchants, and missionaries, a numerical hierarchy that has taken from the earth and not restored it. And while there are a lot of numbers in Bamidbar, especially this portion because it begins with a census, the book of Midbar gives us pictures, even experiences of what it's like to be in wilderness with all the confusion, pain, rebellion, and the panoply of emotions, panoply of emotions evoked by not knowing exactly where you are and where you are going. Today we complete counting the Omer. It is day 49 of counting the Omer. And for those of you who count the Omer using the spherotic tree, we are at the very bottom of the tree, the place where the tree is planted. Malchut, kingdom, majesty, and some even say Shekhinah. We are very close to the earth, looking up to receive the Torah. But let's examine what it means to be in the Midbar, waiting for the words of the Torah. God gave Torah in the middle of the wilderness. It is a gift that comes from the wilderness. But even knowing what the outcome will be, knowing that it will be Torah, knowing that it will be holy, wilderness is scary. Let's look at the word Midbar. Midbar, as I said, means wilderness, but it shares its root with the word davar, which means word or thing, and medaber, one who speaks, which is another way of saying a human being. So just let those words sort of mingle together and have a sense of what Midbar is. As I said, wilderness, word, one who speaks. In the wilderness, we received our words. Heschel says that the sounds of grief are a cry, silence, and a song. That silence is the wilderness. And that silence can be long. We're told that the mourner has no mouth. And while most people say that the reason that we serve round things in the house of mourning is because it represents a cycle of life, the truth is, and while I'm sure that's not untrue, we are told that we serve round things because a mourner has no mouth. And the work of grief is to find that mouth. The crucible of grief is the place where we wait for the words to come and the song that goes with them. Midbar is the transitional space between Egypt and the land of Israel. It's a place of void, of tohu and vohu that Genesis says existed before the world was created. So what are the places where we experience midbar in our lives? When we sink into our most elemental, unformed self in order to allow the unconscious to speak. When my mother was overwrought with the world, she would announce that she was going to protoplasm. And she would lie down on her bed. I hate to say, she would take a cigarette and she would look up at the ceiling. And when she was ready to come back, she would come back, and sometimes with an insight. We enter the wilderness when we enter the dream world every night, because we let go of everything essentially and surrender our souls to the place of celestial cleaning. And if we're lucky, we get a dream when we come back. But it's in that world of sleep that our consciousness rearranges ourselves. Also, when we sink into deep meditation, we are in the wilderness. How many times have you come out of a meditation or woken up in the morning with just the insights you needed to solve a problem you were working on in work or some creative project or even in a relationship? I remember a time when I was having a very, very difficult time with some coworkers, and I didn't know how we were going to go through it, how we were going to get through it, and how I was going to be able to soften my heart towards them. And one night I dreamed of those gel socks that you put on that you put on your feet to make them softer. And when I woke up, I felt my anger had turned into compassion. Something had happened in the wilderness of the dream world that had made that change. Wilderness is an incubator or a womb. It's a liminal space, and it's a place where ultimately we're going to need ritual, because ritual holds us. It creates a passage from one status to another so that we can travel through the void. Ritual helps us to refine the experience of the wilderness and to literally come to terms from Midbar to Medaber, to find Devarim, to find things, words in the Midbar. Contemporary commentator par excellence, Aviva Zornberg, says, out of the wilderness once issued the voice of divine revelation. There Israel was incubated, and there she is endowed with divine gifts. She continues, the book of Bamidbar describes a reconnaissance mission into the human heart, and the manna that was given is essential wilderness food. It is unknown, uncanny, but precisely in its unknowability, it will open a new kind of knowledge, the knowledge of the Midbar. It is a new, and this end quote, it is a new kind of knowledge that is unknowable before our journey began. Back to Zornberg. The unknowable leads the traveler to an imaginative knowledge which refigures and transfigures the world. So, in order to receive Torah, as we will tonight on Shavuot, we are told to make ourselves a wilderness. But it isn't easy. Zornberg again. Parts of the self must be relinquished if something new is to appear. The wilderness holds much beauty as well as much death. It is the container of infinite potential, held in trust against the moment we will stand in God's presence and receive our personal Torah. So how do we make ourselves a wilderness? Rabbi Jeffrey Goldwasser has a 5-step program. First, make yourself small. Remember humility. When we're out in the forest or the wilderness of some kind, we really do have an awareness of our smallness. Cultivate that. Cultivate that. Not to make yourself any less than you are, but to recognize your position in the universe. Release yourselves from attachments. This is number 2. Release yourself from attachments. Shake yourself loose from the illusion that you are owned by anyone or anything. Number 3. Give up physical comfort and personal luxuries. Jettison material encumbrances, which I would say learn to identify as much with your soul, or maybe even more than with your body. 4, from Goldwasser, we must be open-minded and open-hearted to receive Torah. And he closes with, be prepared. Receiving Torah involves danger of being vulnerable to the unknown and confronting our fears. So as you make yourself vulnerable, as you make yourself a wilderness to receive the Torah tonight, I want to give you some blessings for the night of the holy encounter. May you confront your fears and do battle with your personal demons. May you walk into your own promised land, transformed with a new vision. And may the work you do within yourself and in your sisterhoods and brotherhoods and communities bring you closer to God. Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.